Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast in partnership with Eliza Chat, where we explore real tools and stories for building mental strength in the modern world.
Welcome back to the Mental Fitness Podcast presented by Eliza Chat, where we explore the skills, habits, and mindsets that help people build strength before things break. Today's conversation is about performance, pressure, and what happens when the identity you build your life around starts to shift.
Our guest is Brian Goodell, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, former world record holder turned performance coach, who spent years working with high-performance athletes across sports, business, and life. Brian's also a lifelong Mission Viejo Nadador. My wife and I and my kids are all swimmers at the Nadadors, and I have the privilege of being coached by Brian as part of the Masters team. But Brian knows what it feels like to chase excellence, to thrive under pressure, and to wrestle with the internal cost that often comes with it.
In this episode, we go beyond surface-level motivation and talk honestly about confidence, identity, emotional suppression, and the mental frameworks that high performers rely on, sometimes without realizing it. We'll explore what it really means to be mentally tough, where that toughness helps, where it can quietly hurt, and how awareness becomes the next level of performance.
If you've ever tied your self-worth to winning, achievement, or being the strong one, this conversation will resonate. It's all about learning how to stay driven without disconnecting from yourself. So let's dig in. So Brian, you have an incredible story. I already mentioned it's a great honor and privilege to be coached by an Olympic gold medalist. But why don't you just tell us your story from Nadador to Olympic gold?
So, I started out with the Mission Viejo Nadadores when I was 9 years old. Before that, I swam at a little club up in Northern California in the town of Walnut Creek. And so from 6 to 9, I was on a little YMCA club up there called the Sun Valley Swim Club. And then when my father was transferred to Orange County at the time he worked for Standard Oil, also known as ENCO. He was a civil engineer building gas stations for them all over the western U.S. And my parents landed on a brand new home in this brand new community called Mission Viejo back in 1968. So we came here, and my sister and I had been on the local team up there for a few years. And so we would go to the swim pool at the Montnoso Rec Center. David, you probably know that one. And that was the only one in town that we had access to. And we would swim laps. And then my parents got together with the recreation director and a few other sets of parents, and they started the Mission Viejo Nadadores swim team. I
did not realize that. Your dad helped start the Nadadores.
My mom and dad, yeah. In fact, their first formative meeting was in our living room. So we have a long history with the Nadadores, and over time, the Nadadores grew and excelled. And as this community grew up, the Mission Viejo company was the master developer, building one of the first really master plan communities in America. And they kept adding more recreation facilities, more pools, and rec centers, and the team grew, and eventually we became quite the national powerhouse. And I became the first Olympic champion from the town and now city of Mission Viejo back in 1976.
The first of many. There's
about, I think there's well over 20 or 25 Olympians out of our club, U.S. Olympians, and we started attracting a lot of attention, and swimmers came from all over the world to join our team and be coached by our great coaches. And so he brought in a lot of great competition for us and helped me improve rapidly. And so by the time I was a junior in high school at Mission Viejo High School, I was knocking on the door to Olympic greatness, and went to the Olympic trials that year, right after the end of my junior year of high school. And I broke my first two world records there, the 400-meter freestyle and a 1,500-meter freestyle, and then went on to the Olympics in Montreal and broke those records again. And won the gold medal in both those races. So
Wow.
that was a great time. Came back from there and started getting recruited by college teams. I chose to go to UCLA and swim for the Bruins, and won 9 NC2A titles while I was there, and several more national championships, and was really in prime shape in 1980 to go and repeat at the Olympics in Moscow when our country decided to lead a boycott of those Olympics due to the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan, of all things. And President Carter said, "We're not going to Moscow unless they get out of Afghanistan." And well, they didn't get out of Afghanistan, and we didn't go to the Olympics. So I was only went to one Olympics, but I really had a great shot at 2. And I think I would have done exceedingly well in Moscow. I was in better shape. I was older, stronger, faster, wiser, more experienced. Just bummed out that we didn't get to go and do that one too.
When the boycott removed the games from your horizon, that second time, what was going through your mind? How did you process that?
Not very well, really. I think that I dropped into some depression and had difficulty continuing with my daily activities, including training and school. I dropped out of school at UCLA. My plan was to drop out of school anyhow to do the final training push for Moscow. And then the boycott was announced right before that happened. And so then I dropped out anyway and I basically took a quarter off, the last spring quarter off my junior year. Came home to train, but didn't train very much. I trained about half as much as I would have been training. I didn't recognize. I mean, everyone knew, you got to be really bummed out, right? Your big goal for the last 4 years was just taken away. So that's about it. Too bad, Brian. Gosh, that was a tough break. I mean, there was no, mental health resources put there, and we all had to deal with it on our own, and everyone dealt with it. Everyone had a hard time. Everyone I knew, all my teammates and people that I knew, and my coaches, and everyone were really messed up by that.
Well, I'm sure anyone preparing for that, the years of effort, but particularly in your situation, you were expected to repeat as gold medalist.
Yes.
And there was also another interesting dynamic going on. There was another swimmer from another country who was trying to rematch you and win gold, and there was this duel happening. And in fact, a documentary was made called "The Duel We Missed," which was about this story. And so there's so much. We'll get into that film in just a minute, but first, just on the mental health side, so much buildup from the time you're a child through high school, through college. This is perhaps the biggest moment of your life. And then just like that, a decision completely out of your control takes it away.
Exactly.
So you mentioned you didn't train. I think once you told me you just didn't even get in the pool for...
Well, I got in the pool, but I had a really hard time waking up in the morning. I had a hard time sleeping at night. I mean, classic depression symptoms. I was had insomnia and then exhaustion and lack of motivation and everything. So it was a very difficult time it was completely abnormal for me in my life. I'd been one of the most motivated people in the world, I think, and I was up every morning at 4:35 a.m. to train and work hard and do all the things that you need to do to be the best swimmer in the world. And then suddenly I couldn't do any of them, but I did show up, but I didn't show up as much, and I didn't work as hard, and I moped around quite a bit, but anyhow, I didn't, and it's kind of funny because you go from the mindset of an athlete like that, and you think, you're so strong, you're so powerful, and then suddenly you have no control over your life, and you don't really know how to deal with that very well. And I know that a lot of this has come out in the recent years with some of the great athletes, including the GOAT of all time, Michael Phelps. Even when they're successful like he has been, he still deals with that pressure and that sense of lack of control in his life. And what's it mean? And all those things, all those questions that we all ask ourselves, but you kind of go to extremes when you get into this kind of level of performance. And it can be difficult at times, especially if you don't really understand what's happening to you at the moment.
How old were you again in 1980? Or
I was 21 years old. I was in the prime of my competitive swimming career. It was great time, but interesting time.
how with today there's more awareness, there's more tools. In 1980, there was very little awareness, very little tools. You kind of mentioned that already. As a 21-year-old, how did you get through that? I
partied a lot. I was in college at UCLA. What the heck, let's go have a good time. I don't know what you do. I came back. I had one more year of eligibility in school. I swam that year. I swam great. I went through my first 3 years of college, virtually undefeated in any race, and set several American records. I won, as I mentioned earlier, 9 NC2A titles, so 3 a year, which is the maximum you can win in individual events. So on track to win 3 more, and then kind of imploded at the end of that senior season because of a very unfortunate timing of a bad flu epidemic. Not an epidemic, but I caught a flu that was a bad flu. Like, I don't know if that was the one they called the Hong Kong flu or whatever. I forget what the name of that one was, but I caught it while I was at our Pac-10 conference meet over in East Los Angeles, and I had to withdraw from the meet and didn't recover in time for the NC2A. So I had a marginal meet. I mean, I still made the finals of my events, but I didn't win any events. And, so I went out with kind of a whimper instead of as great as it had been for the previous 3 years. So, it was kind of finish to the career, because in those days, we were all amateurs. You couldn't be a professional. You couldn't accept any money if you wanted to be eligible to compete. And there was really nothing left to do after college. I mean, there was no pro swimming, and I needed to graduate and get a job, So it was just sort of like, okay, well, good job, Bri, have a great life. And so that's kind of how it ended.
One of the most accomplished swimmers in the world, and then it's just over.
Wow.
So it was that was an interesting aspect to it. I kind of took the attitude that I had to, I really had a good run and made the most of it. And, sometimes life just happens like that. And, and so you just move on. But there's always some regrets about, like some of my teammates there or guys I competed with, such as Rowdy Gaines, for example. He's same year as me in school, and he retired, and then he decided after about 6 months, he really wanted to go again and try to make the team in LA in '84, because he hadn't been on a team yet. I mean, he was on the 80 team that boycotted, but he wasn't on the 76 team. I'd already been to the Olympics, won gold medals, done all that, and said, what, I'm done. I'm moving on. But he came back and had a great meet in '84 and made a nice career out of his swimming career from that point. So.
Wow, that's an incredible story. That's so wild. There's a lot of different turns there. How so post college, like you said, hey, I got to figure this out. I guess I got to move on, get a job. How did you manage that identity shift, and what did you learn about purpose when these big goals and achievements were kind of taken away from you?
I always thought that. In those days, you might remember that in '72, Mark Spitz won 7 gold medals, and then he did the Wheaties box and commercials and the Bob Hope special and all that kind of thing. And he made a couple $1 million after the Olympics, so he was set up pretty nice, for 1972. I think it was reported he made something like $2.5 million in endorsements, and then he's kind of parlayed that into a lifestyle that he's worked at both as an investor, a real estate investor, and also continued to be a corporate sort of sponsor or not, host, work with corporations and stuff as the Olympic guy. And then the next Olympics was Bruce Jenner. Bruce Jenner was the decathlete who won in '76, and he made about $10 million after that, so that launched his big career. And then '80 was really, I was kind of slated as the guy who would be that guy, the cover of Sports Illustrated, the Wheaties box, all that kind of stuff, which none of it happened.
Wow.
So then it was kind of like, okay, now I got to go figure out what to do with my life and how to make some money. And so I was a geography major at UCLA, and I had been connected with the folks at Mission Viejo Company, who, developed the town. So I grew up in a development environment and understood it fairly well, more than anything else I understood in the world, and besides swimming. And so I went into the commercial real estate brokerage world here in Southern California, Newport Beach specifically, and then joined the Santa Margarita Company in Rancho Santa Margarita when we built the town there. A lot of the executives from the Mission Viejo Company had gone over there, and the O'Neill Moiso family said they owned that land just like they owned Mission Viejo before they sold it to Philip Morris. And so I worked for them for 10 years, building the town of Rancho Santa Margarita. So I got into my real estate development career, and I've kind of stuck with that over the years, mostly, although I have some other side things I do as well. And so I just transitioned into, kind of normal life. I said, I want to be normal. And until I figured out sometimes normal kind of sucks sometimes, but anyhow, that's what I've done, and it's worked out pretty good for me and my family. And so right after I graduated, a couple of years after I graduated, I got married to my wife, and we've been married now for 42 years, and we had 3 kids, and we had a couple houses in Rancho Santa Margarita, and moved back to Mission Viejo, and now we live in Mission Viejo. I've been the mayor here a couple times. I'm mayor pro tem right now. I'm in our real estate office over here by Lake Mission Viejo right now, and so anyhow, it's just normal life in Mission Viejo.
Yeah, I was gonna mention. You said you've been involved in a couple side things. I was gonna mention you've been our mayor of Mission Viejo, and
that's right.
And beyond the Olympics, very accomplished from my perspective in your real estate career and in local politics and everything. I think that transition's amazing. It wasn't easy. Took you some time to figure it out, but it seems that drive that won you 2 gold medals in '76, that doesn't leave.
It doesn't leave. It's the same sort of thing every day. You've got to believe that you can accomplish. You have to have the efficacy, and belief in yourself that you can accomplish things you set out to do, and that you got to be persistent. You have to never say no, and never give up, and keep fighting. But you don't have control over many things. You have to try to control the things you can, and pray that the ones you can't go your way, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But we live a normal life. We struggle every day to keep it all on the up and up and keep it going strong.
Now, you've done, among other things, you've done some work with performance athletes in this space. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I was competing in 1975 in the World Championship team, they brought in a sort of a sports psychologist. He wasn't really a sports psychologist, but he taught a program that was based on sports psychology, and it was from a company called the Pacific Institute out of Seattle, Washington, and they were a great leader. And they had a founder, a guy named Lou Tice, who had been a great football coach up in Washington, had won the state championships with his high school football teams for many years. And then he had transitioned to become a corporate consultant and teaching people, mental toughness, mental preparation, and things like that. And I learned some specific techniques in '75 as a member of the World Championship team as a 16-year-old on how to visualize, how to write goals properly, how to do affirmations, those basic things that a lot of people know about, but not that many people actually use. So I learned to use them, and that's what really helped me overcome some real fear and doubt that I had during the 76 games, especially in my first final of the 1500 meter freestyle. And so later, after a couple of different starts with different companies in the development world, when the big recession hit in 2008, I found myself without a job, without an income, without much to do. I contacted my old swim coach, who was Mark Schubert, and he was the head coach of the U.S. team going to Beijing, the Beijing Olympics. He had invited me to come and be the guest speaker at the last night dinner that they had at Stanford University at their training camp, as the next morning they were getting up to pack their bags and fly to Beijing.
And that 2008 Beijing Olympics was when Michael Phelps won the 8 gold medals. And
that's when he won the 8 gold medals.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was the guest speaker that night to set
You're the
him up.
reason. You're the reason he won
fired
it.
up. So
You motivated him.
I did. It was all my fault. Yeah, they have to thank me. No, but it was a great night. I had a great time. They had a great time. They had a lot of fun. A lot of them, they were quite a bit younger than me, and so many of them didn't know the details of my career, and I was able to share a lot of things that I'd learned, and it was exciting for them. It was exciting for me. So right after that, this crash happens. I lose my job. All these things happened, and so as soon as those Olympics were over and Michael had won his 8 gold medals and Jason Lezak had swam the fastest 100-meter freestyle on the end of that 4x100 relay to pass the Frenchman and break the world record and keep Michael's hope for 8 gold medals alive, I contacted Mark and said, hey, Mark, because he had told me he was working with the Pacific Institute. And I said, who are you working with there? I said, I'd really like to get back involved with them. And so I did. I got back involved with them. Then he connected me with them, and I started working with college teams and the national team on retreats and speaking and training and learning these concepts that have been very effective for many people, especially me. And so I did that for several years, and have continued to do a little bit of it. I haven't made it my main career, but something I really enjoy. And so I like to when I do speaking engagements or when I meet with, athletes, or sometimes people will hire me to coach, privately coach them on visualization techniques and those sorts of things. Then I really enjoy doing all that stuff. And so recently I started coaching over at the Nadadors again with Masters with David and Heather, his wife, and about 200 other what I like to call old farts, anyhow, I really enjoy working with all you guys, and it's a lot of fun for me. And, mainly in that arena, it's mostly just swimming technique. It's not really heavy duty into the mental training stuff, because basically people are just trying to survive and get better and be healthy.
What you don't know is you give us all bragging rights to say that we're coached by an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
That's true. I hear it all the time.
It's so funny. Yesterday, I don't know if you have time for this little story, but yesterday, Chad Carvin was swimming at the noon workout group I was coaching. And Chad Carvin was an Olympian in 2000 and was a great Nadador swimmer, swam at University of Arizona, but swam at Laguna Hills High School, was an Olympian. And anyhow, so I just put his name into ChatGPT to see what came up. And it came up with all this stuff. And then, but it had one fact wrong. And it said that he swam at University of Texas. Well, he didn't. He swam at University of Arizona. So I corrected it, and it said, oh, well, thank you. You're actually, let me think on that. And then it came back and said, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, and it had already mentioned my name and a bunch of other Olympic swimmers in the information that it had produced on the first query or prompt. And so I said, by the way, you're being corrected by Brian Goodell, and I'm coaching Chad Carvin right now at a master's swim workout. And then it went off on this whole thing about how cool that was. So it's a lot of fun to see. I go, how does it know this stuff?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so funny.
Yeah. That's a cool sad story.
As soon as Dave mentioned The Duel We Missed. I quickly Googled it, and it looks like a really cool documentary. Tell us more about that, Brian. How did that come about? Tell us about this documentary.
It is a really cool movie. And so what happened was a couple of years ago, it was basically 2 years ago at just before Thanksgiving, my 76 Olympic teammate, John Neighbor, called me and said, "Hey, Brian, there's a Russian film company, and they're making a movie about Vladimir Salnikov." And he was the one who, we were kind of going like this towards Moscow to compete and try to be the first human to break 15 minutes in the 1,500 meter freestyle. And they're coming here to interview some people, including me and Rowdy Gaines and some other people. Would you be willing to meet with them and talk to them about your experiences? And I said, sure, why not? So I agreed to meet him the Saturday after Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving weekend at City Hall. I was the mayor. So I met him at my City Hall office, and they filmed me. They interviewed me for a couple hours. And then we went over and met with my old coach, Mark Schubert, who was also coaching in the area. And we interviewed us together for a couple hours. And then they left. And I thought, well, that'll be the end of that. I'll never probably see that movie or hear anything about it. It was a documentary about Vladimir Salnikov, So anyhow, and Vladimir Salnikov was the kid. He swam in the 76 games. He got 5th or 6th in the 1,500 free when I won the gold medal. That was the first time I met him, but he wasn't really a consequence. He was probably about, over a lap behind me when I finished the race. And he wasn't there yet in terms of being competitive, but he was one of the best Soviet swimmers. So he got to swim in the Olympics, and he did make the finals. Well, then 4 years later, he's really improved, and now he's knocking on the door to break my world records. So we haven't we met a few times, but not really at any of the big competitions for various reasons that the film goes into a little bit. Mainly because I had some illnesses. I missed the World Championships one year and that sort of thing. So he became the world champion in between the Olympics, and so we were pointing at the Olympics in Moscow to have this duel in the 1,500 and see who could outlast the other one and break the 15-minute barrier, which is still a really tough barrier in swimming. Not that many people have done it. Maybe 30 to 40 people have broken 15 minutes, and the world record now stands at 14:30. So it's pretty much 30 seconds faster, but still there's very few that have gone under 14:50 or 14:45. So it's still our times were still considered competitive. Anyhow, so he ended up breaking that record at Moscow, but he decided that he didn't feel like the Olympic champion because we weren't there. And so he wanted to train again. And he trained again for LA. And then they boycotted LA in retaliation. So then he trained again for another 4 years for Seoul. By now he's 28 or 29 years old. And he's, the Soviet team's like, you're over the hill, hang it up. You're not going to be on, we're not going to support you. He had to train on his own. His wife actually coached him. She had also been a track athlete, but she helped him. And so then he finally wins the Olympics in Seoul when it's a fully attended Olympics. And then he's like, okay, now I can retire because now I really feel like I am the Olympic champion. So they made this story. It's kind of a hero's journey about him. But so then they sent the video to me, a link, and my wife and I watched it. And about 20 minutes in, she looks at me and she goes, "This is all about you." And I said, yeah, it is. Half the film or more is all about me and my relationship to him and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty amazing. It's about an hour and a half long movie. And so we ended up having some viewings of it here in Mission Viejo and in Pasadena and in Indianapolis at the Olympic trials. And then we showed it at the Olympic Film Festival in Paris. And just recently we showed it at it's called the Palladino d'Oro Sport Film Festival in Palermo, Italy, which is the largest sport film festival in Europe. And it won the grand prize Best Feature Film Award. and it was being considered for an Academy Award. And we just found out that it didn't make the finals of the Academy Awards in the documentary category, because in that case, you're looking at documentaries about everything, not just sports, but everything. Although it did score better, this is what the producers told me, it scored better by the judges than any of the films that are being considered for the Oscar.
Oh, wow.
So it was a better film, but it wasn't the right subject matter, apparently. It wasn't politically charged enough or direct or whatever. I don't even know what any of the other films are, but it got our film got 4.5 stars out of 5, and the average for the other ones being considered for the Oscar got 3.5 stars out of 5.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So anyhow, I think we got screwed again.
But pretty cool that there's a film. And like you said, it was Russian filmmakers telling the story from the Russian swimmer's perspective. And yet half of the film is about Brian Goodell.
Yeah. And the biggest contributors to the film were me, Rowdy Gaines, John Neighbor, Mark Schubert, all Americans, We really do like Vladimir a lot. And luckily, Vladimir and his wife were able to come to Palermo, and my wife and I were there. We had a really wonderful reunion there and meeting, and had a lot of fun. We went to the event, our black tie event, and we both got a little... like an Oscar type statuette.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that in the news article. That was cool.
Yeah. So anyhow, it was, what was really nice about that was just to be remembered for what we really did at that time. We were, cutting edge. We were going for it. It was an honest, super honest rivalry, but with a lot of respect. We had a lot of respect for each other and all of our competitors, because we knew what we were all going through to be there and to be that good, to be that well prepared. It was very hard. In fact, we had training sessions. The Soviet team came to Mission Viejo and trained, and USA Swimming brought the best distance swimmers from around the country here, and we had a training camp together. Now they call those things battle trainings, where we would go head to head every day for like a week over Christmas holiday, when everyone was out of school. And just battle these guys every day. And it was intense, and it was fun.
That's pretty cool. One last comment on the film. I just think on the story of the film, what a honor that Vladimir won gold in 1980, but inside didn't feel like the Olympic champion, because he needed to beat you to feel like he was the world champion.
Well, yeah, not just me, but just anyone. He wanted everyone there. It's like, yeah, if you don't have half the people there, then it's kind of like, well, I won this meet, but what would have happened otherwise? There's always an asterisk in your mind, if not on the actual record board, as to what would have happened. I don't know if I would have beat him, but I think I would have. I mean, I never lost a race, and I was in great shape. But who knows? Who knows what would have happened? We'll never know.
The movie is so appropriately titled, "The Duel We Missed."
Yeah, so it's a really, really great film. I hope it gets released to the public. Right now, it's not released out to the public. There's some issues, some licensing issues. The International Olympic Committee owns the rights to about 6 or 7 minutes of the footage of the actual Olympic competition. And they have a very high price tag that they charge to use that footage. And the producers have already raised $180,000 and paid them that much, but that's only about half of what they want for those 6 or 7 minutes.
We should raise some money in Mission Viejo, because that would raise a lot of awareness for the Nadadors as well.
It'd be great for our sport. It'd be great for the Olympic movement. I really just wish the IOC would say, this is a great Olympic movie. We needs to be out there for the world to see. But it's all about Olympism. It's about what we're all about.
All right. This show is all about mental fitness. And here's something most of us don't admit. Everyone has those moments when you feel overwhelmed, stuck, or unsure, and what's actually going on in your head. That's why we built New. New is a mental fitness platform designed to help you clear your thoughts, reflect, notice patterns, develop habits, and get support that fits who you are. It remembers your goals, your wins, the things you're working on, and helps you stay on track. Not therapy, not toxic positivity, just real support when you need it. If you want to be part of the early access group, head to talkwithnew.com. That's talkwithnue.com. Sign up now and get 3 months free. Back to the sort of you speak to a lot of athletes, consult, sort of coach on the mental game. I mean, you also coach the actual swimming, but you talked about a lot of the visualization, the sports psychology you had learned when you were an athlete, and that's a lot of what you're teaching. What, if anything, from your 1980 experience, the mental health journey that caused in your own life, what from that do you incorporate into your coaching or teaching? Is there any part of that you kind of warn athletes about, or was there something you learned there that you incorporate, or is that really separate? There's the visualization, goal setting is its own thing, and your experience was totally separate.
It's completely integrated into it. David, you know that I harp on you guys in the pool on little technique issues constantly. At least I try to. I don't want to be a broken record, but just yesterday, the woman who swims down near Heather at the end there, and when you swim sometimes there, Jan is there. Jan's older woman but she really competes, and she likes to compete in some very national level competitions for certain categories of people. And anyhow, so I just had to, tell her, look, if your stroke looks really great, Jan, but your flip turns. I said, you're coming off the wall, you're coming off like this, I said, if you could just get to here, you'll save 1 second per length of the pool, I promise you. And the next thing you know, she's doing it. And it's like, that's a physical technique issue, but it's a mental lapse that we all have. And that the more you can eliminate mental lapses for things like that, that's just a habit, It's a habit. She knows that's the way you're supposed to come off the wall, but she doesn't do it. And that's probably one of the biggest ones I see all the time. So yeah, it's habits are a big part of it. And one of the ways you correct bad habits is by doing your visualization and seeing those things, doing them right all the time. And then, it flows over into the actual physical act of it. And, when you're training or when you're racing. And if you don't pay attention to those little things kill you. They kill everybody. They kill the athletes that are trying to do their best time, because they can't do their best time if they don't do those things. And it's just like all of us. I mean, we get lazy about things, I mean, do we all drink enough water every day? Do we all eat enough protein every day? Do we get enough rest? Do we get enough sleep? I mean, those are basics, but it's, again, what's the picture you're holding in your mind of who you are, or who you are, how you are being? You're a human being, not a human bin, So what are you being right now? How am I being, and so it's those sorts of concepts that I like to bring in. And believe me, I have as many problems as everyone else. I'm pretty lazy and relaxed about a lot of things that I could do much better every day in my life. And I recognize that. So it's not that I'm saying I'm better than anyone else. It's just that I'm aware of them and I'm pointing them out and trying to help people overcome their lack of attention, lack of focus. Just realize, you're not helping yourself right there if you're doing that and not that and not this, that sort of thing.
Hey, well, you helped me a lot with my breaststroke. I mean, and like you said, in Masters, the culture is a little different. It's not as much hard coaching because it's a bunch of older people who are primarily there to keep in shape. But you really helped me improve my technique there. And then in 2024, I was swimming in the national Masters meet in Mission Viejo, and I medaled in the breaststroke, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you, and that's my worst stroke. So there you go. I can even help you when it's something I'm not very good at myself.
Well, your level and my level are worlds apart, and you have plenty to teach me in there still.
Yeah, I was the American record holder one time for the 400 IM, so I did have a 100 breaststroke that I did pretty good once.
He's not very good at it, but he had a world record in the past.
Yeah.
I want to dig in on something you said though that I really like, Brian. You said it's about being, not what you've been, right? But being, that's essentially what we call mental fitness. This is the mental fitness podcast, right? It's a verb. So that's how we describe mental fitness. Is this, it's this mental fitness is this actively building this inner capacity so you can handle stress, adapt to change, bounce back from life's hardships, not only when things do go wrong, but just in everyday life, right? So with that context in mind, what advice would you give to, high performers or just anyone about sustaining mental fitness and that being?
I think you have to ask yourself, how am I being, or who am I being right now? And am I being the person I want to be, or am I being the person I don't like, or the person that, that I was yesterday when I was not as good as I want to be. It's an awareness of what you're doing. And I think that, a lot of times we just get tired, of striving so hard to do so many things. But how are you being? How are you reacting to what you're feeling or what you're up against right now and trying to achieve? And, one time I was on Good Morning America, and the host said, or the interviewer said, well, are you just talking about having a positive attitude? And I said, well, you could put it in that bucket if you want to. It is in that bucket. Okay. Having a positive mental attitude. Yes. But this is more than that. This is, who am I being right now? What am I doing? How am I affecting myself and others with what's happening both in my head and in the world? That, how am I affecting and reacting to the world? So it goes into a whole nother level. And it's just a matter of how lofty I think your goals are. If you don't have lofty goals, then you don't have to be that good. You can be good enough, it's like, I just got to get through this week, and then I'll have the weekend, and then I can get through next week. I mean, a lot of people live that way, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you can do more if you want to. You can be more, and if you want to be more, then let's get on with it and figure out how to get it done, and be the best being you can be.
I love that. That's profound. And maybe sort of some personal questions, but what are the habits or routines that help you to stay grounded and help you, or the things that you're working on now to be who you want to be? I mean, you've been what so many millions and billions of people want to be, at the top of the world, but you continue to be an awesome person. And so what are you doing now on a regular basis to be the person you want to be?
Well, I don't know. We could get into the weeds on that one, but I'm sure I'm not being as good as I want to be most of the time, every day. I'm, the reality, I guess I have to say, is how do I visualize myself? And now I'm actually a senior citizen, if you can believe it. It's hard to believe, but yes, I'm going to be 67 on my next birthday, and I've got 7 grandkids and an 8th one on the way. And, and so in the context of how I live my life every day in Mission Viejo, California, which I like to call the Shire, from The Hobbit. It's a beautiful little place to be, and usually there aren't too many adventures happening around here. I mean, everyone's striving to get through the week or do whatever, but it's a nice place. I don't know. It kind of depends. There's a lot of different channels we could go down talking about that thing, but I have, I've got my Franklin planner, it's filled up with all kinds of stuff. And, every day I'm trying to move the ball forward on about probably 8 or 9 different items. It's the same as I was back when, after I finished swimming. Swimming was one of the easiest things ever. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was simple. It was the simplest thing ever. I mean, basically you get up, you go, you train hard, you do what your coach tells you to do. You come back, you rest, you eat, you rehydrate, you go back, you do it again. It's like, that was simple. That was a simple life. Very hard, but simple. Hard work. Now it's way more complex. It's not simple. It's way more complex. And then, but still, it's the same pattern. You go and you do it again. You do it again. You do it again. So anyhow, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but
no, that's good. That's good. I just wanted to kind of get a feel for where you're at. I really like what you were saying. I think that was very profound about we're human beings, not human bends. And what are we trying to be?
Think into this, David. Think of the swimming site called Swim Swam. I love that. That's Mel Stewart's site, and it's very popular for amongst swimmers. But what does it mean? You're a swimmer or you're a swammer. I mean, either you swim or you swam, and Swim Swam. So the site is designed for those people who are both swimmers and swammers, and I love that because. It's like, yeah, I'm not a human Ben. I'm a human being, and I'm continuing on. I'm just in a different stage.
Yeah,
a different age group.
Yeah, that's incredible. One thing we like to do, sort of at the end of a podcast, is just a handful of rapid fire questions. We'll just throw out a question. You just say the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll just get through a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Early mornings or late nights?
Oh, I do both. Mostly early mornings now because I'm coaching, and a lot of times I'm getting up at 4:00 to be over there and open the pool and be ready at 5 for the first bunch of crazy people who show up at 4:45 to swim every day.
Awesome. Next question. When you're overwhelmed, do you prefer something like music or silence?
Music.
I thought you would say that because Brian always is playing good music during workouts. He's the only coach that plays music during the workouts, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, I have some good playlists, so that's good.
Are you more competing with others or competing with yourself?
I'm always competing with myself.
This one might be a little less rapid, but is there any advice you hear all the time that you don't necessarily like?
Hang in there. How about that one?
That's a good one.
One thing, we kind of talked about this already, but just one thing you're still working on.
Getting my HIT together.
That sounds good.
Yes. And the last one, at your peak, in those Olympic days, what's one word teammates would use to describe you?
Animal.
Oh,
love that.
That's a good one. Well, Brian, thank you. Thank you for taking time. And I mean, I knew you were the first Mission VO Notador to win gold. I did not know how pivotal you and your family were to the creation of the Notadors and the formation of it. And that's a blessing because all my kids have been Notadors. I have a son that's going to be swimming this fall at BYU and Big 12, and he's lifelong Notador. We've actually have a brick for our family, those bricks we purchased where you can get your names engraved. We feel such a part of the Notadors. And I've known of your story because there's a big poster of you there, but I didn't realize how integral you were. So thank you for that. It's been a huge part of all of our life. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. It's been a huge part of my life too, and my family, and we love it. It's just home.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. We really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with us. A lot to think about for listeners. So,
my pleasure. I enjoyed it very much, and wish you guys the best.